Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart, doing business and life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to learn how to do business and life and to make an impact in the world. How are you going to serve somebody today? What impact are you going to make? My guest today is making huge impacts from a very catastrophic events that have happened in his life. You are going to learn, inspire, motivate, and be educated how to have a better life. Randy, I'm so excited to have you on. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here, and just our little visit that we had's got me so excited about just sharing my story a bit with the folks
I love it.
on
Yeah, those
your
green rooms can be very powerful.
award-winning podcast here, man.
Thank you,
That's
sir. I
awesome.
appreciate
Yes.
that. With that being said, I want to start with, like we talked about in the green room, that moment that changed your life.
There was a moment in my early 40s that changed my life. That was a secondary change, because that was the consequences that were being ushered into my life based on some things that I was responsible for doing. But back before that, in 1992, I experienced, and I often say that there's no manual on how to deal with losing a child. And if there was, we didn't get one. It's certainly one of those that, and you think and you worry about your kids so much, their health and everything. But you just, in the back of your mind, nothing will happen to my kids, until something does. And we lost our oldest daughter, 4 years old, in one day, the day after her birthday, to a very rapidly happening disease that basically shut down her major organs, and she died in the local hospital within just about an hour of my wife noticing that something was definitely wrong with her. I was at basketball practice that day at Miami of Ohio as a college coach, and was rushed to the hospital to see her basically after she had passed. And on that day, I mean, it was like putting a stake in the ground that I just knew, and I just didn't want any part of it, but I knew that my life and our life had changed forever from that second forward. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what it could be manifested into. I didn't know any of that. And I was scared to death, because you don't. And here you've lost a precious child. And it all changed that day. Before I say another word, I always say this, that it's kind of a disclaimer, that the things that happen to us in our life, some of those come from the periphery. That I mean, death like that happens, they say, to us. I say it happened for us. Natural disasters, things of that nature. And so I witnessed that, but I also witnessed, in tremendous pain through adversity of these health situations with our children, I also learned that it's what we do with those adversities in that moment that can also cause pain, that don't come from the periphery and from the universe. They come from decisions we have made. And I implore men to really take a look at where things come from before they begin to blame, and before they give up and just say, the world's got it out for me. That's it. I'm done. You know what? That's not the answer. And even if they're things that I caused, which I'll get into, that's not the answer either. So they can come from both places. I think that's a really important distinction that I had to learn through a lot of years, and a lot of introspection and some therapy from some world-class doctors.
And the blessings are, Randy, you can now share these with others so you don't have to go through it. You went through a very catastrophic time, but what you're doing with the servant's heart is share it with others so they don't have to, they can learn from it, right?
Yeah, it kind of goes like this. I got in a point, this was only a couple of years ago, where I started to question about all the pain and all the consequences and all the things I had lost. Let's just say that, and put those in a big bundle and look at that bundle and say, not why me, but man, that's a lot of stuff. What does all that represent? And can I do anything about it? Well, no, I can't do anything about it because it's in the past. But can I do anything about the reality of these things and how they were caused and why they came to fruition? And let's talk about the pain. Can I do anything about the pain? Could I do possibly, is there such a thing as taking something as horrible as that kind of pain and turning it to the positive in someone else's life? And I had this moment, and it was so emotional and so riveting that I thought, there is no way they're going to put me in a box with this story in my pocket. I'm not going to do it. I'm not. I have a gift for other men, other women whose husbands are struggling, other grandparents, other kids who might hear this story. And what is that? That's sharing my circumstances and what I did when I was at my lowest and changes I could have made and gift those to men. We have a lot of men in this world that are hurting. Most of them, nobody knows about it. That's scary. And that
Yeah.
was me. That was me. It was self-preservation. But when I got into pornography and it was in alcohol and was in overworking, I was so prideful I didn't want to let anybody know that I was that fallible.
Yeah.
Okay. That weak, that's shameful. And so I didn't say anything. And that's the scary thing about this curtain that so many men live behind.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
it's my mission to tap them on the shoulder, get their attention, and tell them that I've got a safe place that they can come to where they can break down as bad as they want to. But in order to get these things out, that which is hidden is never healed. Love
Yeah.
that phrase. And we've got to get it out in the light. When it goes from darkness to light, that's when the great things can really happen in a man's life. So I know that's a very, very long-winded answer, but yeah, that's what happened, and that's where my life changed for good once.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said something important is us men, especially in sports. I wasn't at the level you were, but you were in sports. You were looked up to by college athletes. That's part of the curtain that you didn't want to pull up. I don't want these guys to see this.
Yes.
Will they respect me? Will they listen? Right?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
pride gets
Absolutely.
to, yeah, like you said. Well, I
Yeah.
want to ask you. Let's switch gears a little bit because that was deep, and I'm glad you said that and appreciate your transparency. But who would you love to have dinner with that's no longer with us?
There are so many, and my choice though is Vince Lombardi.
Okay.
Had tremendous respect for him just as a kid watching his teams, but I've read a lot about him. And I actually drove a friend of mine when I was out in Jersey, drove me by his St. Cecilia school where he had his first coaching job as a basketball and football coach. It kind of brought me back to ground zero. And but Coach was like a guy who knew the formula for winning, and through very just the most basic, almost primitive ways of teaching the game, block and tackle and do it to the best of your ability. And I grew up as a coach learning from people like that. Those were my role models. And so I always kind of really resonated with Coach Lombardi. And so I would have to say him. I think would be fascinating. He'd be awesome.
And that leads to my thought of sports and life bridge over a lot of times.
Oh boy.
What you went through probably was a blessing that you were a coach because you could utilize those tools that you learned and stuff that you experience as a coach to help your own self, right? And help others.
Yes. I've had many conversations with players because we lost not one but two children, and actually almost a third. So we've lost two girls in an 8-year period, and in the middle almost lost one of our other daughters, Claire. But I don't hide that from and I remember specifically in buses and in hotels talking to my players about it, just because I could tell they wanted more, but they just didn't want to ask. And I felt really it was sort of my duty, because they're going to grow up to be men, to be family men. And you know, the older we get, the higher the incidence in really what I call big hurt is going to happen in our
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to get a little bit of perspective from me, and the way that I was at least trying to handle it on the good side. Um, and that those conversations have happened ever since '92 all the way up until today. I still will talk to my players, my former players, because they're now going through that. And I've fielded many calls from them that, hey, I know you can understand this, but I'm going through a tough thing in my marriage right now. And boy, I'll tell you, I hate to hear that news, but I love the fact that they were wise enough to at least call someone who could maybe give them some reflection on that. That means a lot.
Yeah. And being open like that's huge. And again, I'm going to go back to the tragedy that you went through with losing two children. You're blessing people now.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this and I'm going to get emotional, but your kids up in heaven right now are smiling because of you doing that. And I think if you could talk to them, I don't want to speak for you, but I could just feel it right now as you're speaking. With all this, I want to ask a really, I want to say tough question, but if somebody came to you and said, I lost a child, what's a tip you would give them?
Tell them to do what I just did. Take a deep breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the first things I would want to know is where they're at in their faith life, if faith is a part of their life or not, because that really dictates what I'm going to say next. I don't answer that question well if they don't have a basis of their faith, because so much of what I've done and that I'm still here is based on the fact that I have tried not to take this on and make it right. I did for a lot of years, asking the question why, asking what about all the pain, just screaming and cursing at God about how he could let this happen if he's such a wonderful God. All of those things that you do when you're in your mind, when you're so conflicted about what's happened. But what I would do is I want to reassure them, especially if they're a person, a man or woman of faith, is because this came as such a comfort to me, that they're going to see their child again. Now, we don't know the form of those that we're going to see in heaven, but I know I'm going to see them again. And man, I'm telling you, that is one of the most, I mean, I can get so joyful when I think about that. It's unbelievable. And so I want them to have that hope, because this is about hope. It is about what we lost, but it also is about what we're going to gain down the road. I also will give them a little bit of a challenge to say, I would love to know that you're also going to work on how to fashion an answer to that when someone else asks you. And if it's early in the stages, they're going to say, there's no way I could do that. And I get that. They would just probably break down and be just a pool of tears. I get that. But I said, there will become a time to where somebody's going to need your guidance on this. And it's a small group of people, I mean, percentage wise, let's say, who are in this club of ours that have lost children. So I mean, and if they're up to it, I would say that I would say that's definitely a huge thing that they can give back to the world, is being able to speak with someone about that. And then thirdly, Steve, I would say that, you know, I really want to reassure them, without even knowing their story, that it wasn't anything that they did. It's because it's almost never the case And there are things that have just, like in my case, there's no one to blame. And in my case, there really isn't. My wife and I were as prudent as we could possibly be with our kids. But it happened. It was one of these things that happened. It was an external thing. It was a health thing. And who knew that we had a 60-minute time clock on it? Oh my gosh. And people can really take the blame for things that aren't theirs. And I've seen people absolutely just ruin their lives and just turn to nothing. And to be so negative and so despondent about life because they blame themselves because of their child losing a child, whether it was their fault or not. And so I would beg them to really give themselves a break.
Yeah. Let me ask
All of
you.
these
Go
things,
ahead.
please understand, all three of those things came through a lot of years of maturity and listening to people and trying to figure this out on my own. And I'm blessed that I can even offer those three to you, because there's no way, back closer to it, I could have. There's no
Yeah.
way.
Servant's heart right there, audience. That's what a servant's heart looks like. I want to ask this. If you start all over again, would you live the same life and be where you are today?
Ab, uh, this is an emotionally driven answer. Absolutely, yes. I know that there could be a morbid sound to that, but I'm realizing the gift that is coming through all the things that have happened to us. And in talking to my folks, about this, and oh boy, I gained so much from them. Just a perspective of you got to stay with it. So many people are counting on you, and you can really help a lot of people. That was one of their first messages. I remember, man, I'm like, how can they be so wise to say that? They just lost their grandchild. I mean, think how bad they're hurting. But
Mhm.
yes, I would, because of what I now know, what I now see. And I don't think there's a I think there's a lot less a chance, not being a believer, that I can have this posture, Steve, and be able to speak like that, and to be able to tell you yes. But I can honestly tell you that yes, I would.
Powerful answer. Powerful. We talked earlier about men, our egos, our pride, and all that.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing from you and what I'm getting from you is wearing your heart on your sleeve, that people say are showing your heart as a man, has made you a stronger man, hasn't it?
It has. I'm truly responsible, and in in the media that becomes such a trite statement. I'm taking full responsibility for everything, right? Well, time will tell on that one. To take responsibility uh, is a very difficult thing to do, and I actually had to be taught. Um, and it came in a very odd place for a gift like this to be given me. But I had to be taught what was called the language of responsibility, the language and body language of responsibility, because I didn't know what it was. See, part of part of what happened through my response to the loss of my children is I became very isolated, I became very depressed, and I leaned on addictive behaviors to get me through, to stay away from the pain. Alcohol, I overworked, and one of the things I did was got involved with pornography, which in the end ended up costing me my entire career, and I had to do a 2-year prison term in medium security federal prison. A no joke deal, right? Well, the blessing in all that, and don't the blessings keep coming? Isn't it unbelievable? The blessing in all that was the judge, when I got sentenced me to a place in North Carolina, and I live in Iowa. And I'm like, judge didn't check the map. He's not taking care of me here.
Yeah.
Well, why he did that is because I was given a free ticket into a 2-year program that had a 10-year waiting list. And I was given immediate entrance into that to do my 2 years of federal time. And it was a sex offender treatment program that I was fortunate enough to become part of. I spent 2,400 hours in treatment. Are you kidding me? I was going to be in prison anyway. And I'm in this program. And I was very defensive, believe me, and very ego driven when I started for 6 months. But they broke me. And once they broke me and I submitted to them in the program, everything else was unbelievable what I learned. One of the things I learned was the language of responsibility. And so that I can, you're saying, do you find yourself a better man? I'm a better man because of what 6 doctors and treatment specialists were able to teach me during those 2,400 hours were that you now have to take this. This is your stake in the ground. You have to take this with you. This is part of you. You can talk about the basketball championships all you want to. People are going to love that. What people want to hear is who you really are. Now, I know it's not fashionable. And in the work I do, it's hard to get to men who can turn that page. But it's what I do because I know that's what it takes. And I give them all the credit. I see them. I say, God, and I say the people in the people at Butner, North Carolina, in the facility there, those doctors they were amazing. I give them all the credit.
You said gift a couple times in this conversation.
Many times.
And I love it. But is that gift like the example, the story, talking to these players in the hotel,
yeah,
wherever, at dinner, where you're at?
Yeah.
So you're taking your tragedy and your beautiful children that you lost and turn that into a gift, correct?
Yeah. Turning a mess into a message. I wrote a book, Steve, called Rebound Forward, Rebound from Life's Most Devastating Losses and Stay in the Game. And my favorite chapter in Rebound Forward is the one called the back of the quilt. When we see life and experience life, a lot of times we see that we're on the back of the quilt. And we all know what that looks like, right? All those little threads that come out there and they tie them off in different colors and all kind of textures. And it looks like a disaster. And a lot of times that's what life looks like. I know this to be true, that there's going to be a point in my life when I'm going to leave this earth and I'm going to be ushered around this quilt to the other side of the quilt. And we all know what that side of the quilt. And that's the one God's been crafting and creating the whole time in life when we thought it looked like crap.
Yeah.
And we were getting crapped on. And like, hey, how come everybody's picking on me? Why is all this stuff happening to me? That's the back of the quilt. The great news is we're going to be able to see the front of the quilt. And it's going to be so unbelievably gorgeous and so painstakingly beautiful that I can't wait to see it.
This is the greatest way to end this podcast. We've run out of time. That is so powerful what you said and everything you said today. And again, I want to thank you for being very transparent to the audience and to me. Absolutely. I know it's always going to be difficult, but I know somebody's going to hear it and move forward. But how can somebody reach out to you if they have questions about all this?
Well, a couple different things. I will give them my direct personal email. Here it's RB, my initials, Randy Brown, RB at rbspeaks, rbspeaks.com. And they can send me an email there. And actually my website is the same. If they want to see more, it's RB Speaks. It's rbspeaks.com is the website. Now, last thing, I know how guys are. I know how people are in general. When there's things that we've hidden that we know are going to be painful to take from dark to lightness, it takes one thing, and it takes action. If they hear this with good intentions, and it's on their heart, and they're going to go to church and be even more convicted if they're a believer, let's say, or talk to somebody else that's struggling, and they'll know I should tell him, but I'm not going to tell him because you know what? Guys, action, folks, action. You have to take some action. The number one thing I would do is grab a trusted friend, one that will not judge you, and ask him if you can have a half hour of their time, sit down at a coffee shop or somewhere where you can have one-on-one and pour out your heart. And I'm telling you, you will lose thousands and thousands of pounds of weight off your conscience, off your heart, and off your soul, and you will become a different person in that moment by telling one person. But the problem is we're afraid to tell anybody because we think they're all going to go tattletale and judge us. Find a person who won't judge you. I don't know who that is, but you have people in your life that are the right ones to go to. This is one of the most powerful therapeutic life hacks I could ever give anybody. And it works, believe me. And I've met with hundreds of men who have poured out to me, who said, I didn't think I'd ever tell anybody this. I go, thank goodness you did, because this is the first day of the rest of an unbelievable life you've got, man. So
Amen.
yes, they can reach out, Steve, that would be awesome. But as long as they take action of some sort, that's the whole key. I have to get that across. That's so big.
I'm glad you did. So, and it's extremely important. And audience, listen to this again. Hey, you want to get motivated? I'm going to listen again next week. Listen to this show and get these tips from Randy and learn more and reach out to him. And I want to thank all of you for listening and watching. And we'll see you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.